Welcome to the 2-Month Review, the weekly podcast brought to you by Open Letter and 3%, in which we take one giant book, break it down bit by bit, section by section, analyze it, talk about it, have fun. I'm Chad Post from Open Letter Books, joined as always by Brian Wood, author of Joytime Killbox.
Hi, Chad. Oddly enough, I just got back from a hike, and I'm wearing blue, and you're wearing red. This is like Double Dare or something. I feel like.
I remember that show.
For those that are only listening, I have on a blue shirt, and Chad has a very red shirt, and it's like Crips and the Bloods, and we need Sean Penn and whoever else is in that movie colors to solve problems for us. Because you know what? If something is going to fix a problem, it's going to be the LAPD.
Every time. I was talking about this yesterday with some people I met where they're talking about Peppa Pig, because I was complaining about all these dumbass shows that I have to watch that Alex watches. And they're like, oh, well, Peppa Pig, Peppa Pig's fine. And it's like, I'm so over Peppa Pig. Last summer when he was watching that all the time, there's one episode where it's like, we need to be nice to the police. The police are our friends. And I was like, we're over, Peppa. It's time. Like, I don't know what the fuck England's police are like, but we're not going there. There's half my city is on fire because of your fucking police.
I smoke pigs. I ain't friends with them.
I had this idea the other day after the Euro Cup. We were walking home and there's like cops trolling around all over. And I was like, it would be awesome if every time you saw a cop, instead of like yelling something harassing, you just yell, defund yourself over and over again. Because it's like the least offensive thing. You can't really get in trouble for that, I don't think.
Yeah.
Like if you call them a pig, they'll shoot you.
Yeah. And oddly enough, while we're on Peppa Pig, I should say, my daughter, we were at a swimming pool, and this German couple was living in our building, and they go, so wait, you and your wife sound American, but your daughter, she's English? And I'm like, oh no, she watched Peppa Pig when she was 3. Oh, okay, that makes sense now. Because she'd say stuff like, where are you going on holiday? Like,
the seaside resort.
Yeah.
On the trolley.
Now she watches Teen Titans Go and this Russian propaganda show called Masha and the Bear.
Masha and the Bear is very terrifying to me. I want to develop. I need to watch more of it, but I have a developing theory about what's going on between that bear and Masha. And I feel like all these shows are unnerving.
Well, that one, if you're into translation, that one has some interesting translations sometimes.
Very
weird. Like, who's doing this?
Alex is known to Go-Go Rangers, as he calls it.
Okay.
Like Dino Power Rangers. Who knows? Who cares? So anyways,
we get to spoil everything in this one, right? This is the penultimate, final.
Not even penultimate, just final.
Just the final. All right.
Just the final
section.
Yeah. So Frank is supposed to join us. And we're hoping that he'll come on anytime now, and we'll just log him in. But otherwise, we are covering the last section of the 3rd volume of Vernon Subutex, in which everyone dies.
Well, yeah, I guess with enough time, everybody does die. And so, yes.
With enough time, everybody but Vernon dies in one moment.
Yeah. Well, most of them, yeah.
And
the ending of this, it kind of reminded me of, there's a terrible, it's good, but it's terrible Norm Macdonald joke about 9/11. And someone says, like, dude, you can't joke about that. And he goes, what? I was wading through blood and bone looking for my brother in the streets of Manhattan. I could joke however I want. And this is basically how this one is. It's just a pool of blood and bones with Vernon on the bottom of it. Just everything piled on his face.
Yep. Big explosion. So
enjoy your ending.
Everyone dies. It reminds me of in a backwards way, and that this metaphor doesn't hold, but that Red, White, and Blue trilogy from that Polish director who did the Decameron some years ago, and where there's all these 3 movies that are sort of connected. They're thematically linked through colors, and then at the very end you find out that everyone who is part of them was on a cruise ship that dies. Or something like that. It's a boat. I don't know. It probably not a cruise ship, but it's a boat. They all die. Or maybe some of them get rescued. I can't remember. Whoever's watching this, you know what I'm talking about. Fuck it. Who cares? Anyway, so for anyone who didn't read this section, we threw a oblique entrance point with a character we've never met before, who is friends with Antoine. is talking about how Antoine died in this shooting at this church, and we start to figure out that everything went wrong at the convergence that Celeste wanted to have happen, where they'd have like their church of musicians and have another convergence and come out of this like funk that the group has like found themselves in after they sort of got broken apart. And then we get the woman Solange, who is convinced by Max online to basically go and massacre everyone. Again, he sets her up with grenades and I believe assault rifles and everything. And then you get Vernon, who's the only survivor, but people think is dead, who is living with oh my god, Marcia, who is the Brazilian transvestite from the first volume that he fell in love with at Kiko's. She rescues him from a train station that she finds him in after he's like crawled through literally, like you said, blood and guts and bones and bodies to make it out of this cathedral where Solange came in, you know, grenades ablazing and just blew everyone apart. And that's that. The end. There is like a proto history thing, like you said, though, too.
And then he becomes not a father, but like kind of a surrogate guardian for Aisha and her son.
Yeah,
right.
That's true. Yeah. So then the last chapter is like a forward through time.
Yeah.
Thing, which I think is supposed to be a nod towards. I don't remember exactly which Welbeck book, but it reminds me of a Welbeck book mixed with like Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure.
Yeah, it kind of has elements too of the ending of AI. It was supposed to be Stanley Kubrick's film. He died during the production of it, and Steven Spielberg did it. But the end of it, you know, it's supposed to be Pinocchio, the Pinocchio story, but the end of it flashes forward like thousands and thousands and thousands of years to show the evolution and the destruction of humankind and the rebirth, and you get it this really quick epilogue. It's and in some ways too, it reads like on Achebe's Things Fall Apart.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different narrator that has a different perspective on something and gives you a bunch of everything you just read. You get 2 paragraphs that explain all of it, and then what the result is. It's like this the footnote of history, which is the 3 books we just read, is this footnote, right?
Isn't there like the opening to Handmaid's Tale isn't dissimilar from that? Well, maybe. Yeah. It's been 20 years. The thing that's most noteworthy, I suppose, about this future history is that they essentially ban music because Vernon like has opened up the gateway to the mind and like transformed everything, and music is dangerous. So people have like these rogue raves, and then like the government's all cut down and are like, no more for you. And there's a sect of Vernon Subutex. We do find out his real name, actually. We thought we didn't, but we do. It's at the very end of Marcia's section. But and Aisha, he lives, like you said, he lives on an island with Aisha and her daughter. And then as like years in the future, her daughter's like part of, or her descendants are part of like a political government situation trying to like restore the rights to music.
I thought, you know, not to toot our own horns, we do most things very terrible, but I was surprised at how well we pinned down the idea of disciples, John the Baptist, and Jesus, like nailed all of that. And then our talk about everything in this one is based around currency, and they take this massacre and this morbid satire that she does with it, where it becomes a TV show that makes a bunch of money, and and Dopele wins. He makes all the money. He gets all the. It's like, we could anything with your name on it, Vernon. It's worth money. It's so great. Isn't this wonderful? And he's just like, oh Jesus, I'm out of here.
Yeah, you become
yeah, like it goes just ham. She like pushes it into this, you know, ham-fisted satire of like money and rights and this and that. It's like, it's kind of like sick and disgusting and hilarious all at the same time. Which of course it has to end that way with the characters that are involved, and everybody that's trying to do something beautiful is ripped apart and drowning in their blood.
And everyone who's the top person's making boatloads of money, and
the evil prevails, and evil
always wins. That's what I heard growing up.
And if you're not if you're not in line, and if you're not marching to the right beat, and if you're dancing a little bit different, we can't have that. So that's all has to be illegal now. So
Yeah, like in Footloose.
At a church.
Sure.
The church is involved in that too.
That's true. It is, isn't it? And then the sheriff shoots everyone.
So what did you think about the landing on this for how we finished?
This is a part that I remembered the best. Like
Okay.
even before we started, and I knew everything would coalesce here. And so it was more about the journey this time than the ending. The first time I was like, what is going to happen here? And like, I assumed like something would go wrong, or I thought it would just fade away. Like there's an equal chance that it wouldn't be something like the world ends in fire or in entropic death, whatever that is the T.S. Eliot line, I think. But I thought, well, it could be like, tie into like all the bad people who are involved, all of the terrorist attacks that are referenced, all that stuff, or it could just be like, nobody shows up anymore, and Vernon just sort of dies of a heart attack at one of these raves, and that's it. It didn't make any big difference. Nothing changed.
Just cocaine heart explosion when the beat drops. Yeah,
that's how I plan on going out, man.
Instead, it's literal explosion with heads being decapitated from the bodies.
Yep, exactly. It's like a Rick and Morty death scene.
I guess.
Yeah, so it was less like this time. It was less like paying attention to that part and more of like, how did all of this get there, where every one of these characters is fucked, and like they're, and not just by being killed, but like they're all like in various ways like taken over. Like there's a brief moment. It's like the thing that I always whenever I get drunk, I like, not whenever, but when I'm drunk, sometimes I like to talk about the Pynchon books as being in the 60s as being the last moment where like things could have gone a few different ways. Like there's a chance that like the people in control wouldn't have retained control. There's a chance that like this outside movement could have changed things. And like the Pynchon books, like Gravity's Rainbow, all of that, like on the people on the side that are like just close. If things would break a different way, if possibilities happen in a different way, then the power structures don't coalesce and take everything over. And this had that feel for so long of like, maybe, and it's not. And so watching it not happen this time was more like a slow collapse of like everything being locked back in, and then John the ultimate way. But it's one of the more depressing like thought structures you can get into, is that really there's no way. Everything's predicted and controlled now. Like even when we have like Black Lives Matter riots for like protests for a very long time and upend stuff, it still feels like you're not there. Everyone else the police is still in control. Everything else is still in control.
Yeah.
Not to Peppa Pig this too much.
Not to Peppa Pig it too much.
What did you think though? Because this is your first time.
Yeah. No, there's pros and cons. I think like the pros is she earned everything that is at the end of it. There's forewarning, there's setup, and there's payoff, and it's not like just like dropping something in your lap. And then the con to that is that in some ways the seams do show, and it does telegraph a little bit, which, that's okay. I mean, like this whole thing, like the second half, it's like all the death of artists, like over and over, like every week or any artist they bring up is dead. Like Prince, 2006 was a shitty year. Oh, yep. David Bowie's dead. Lemmy's dead, like just dead. Like so you're getting right. So here's all
really did happen though too.
What's that?
It all really did happen.
Yeah, but what I mean though is that so you're getting like the death of artists and these important things to them, and at the same time you're having all of the xenophobia in Europe, and then you're having all the rising fascism there as well, and nationalism there as well. So like this control, like it's circling around them, and then she's adding in the different terrorist attacks that are happening all over the place, and then you have this church that has something good and pretty, and they're all going to get in a big group somewhere. So it's kind of, so it's kind of like, what are we? And freaking poor Celeste is not recovered, but she's able to be human again.
Yeah.
Right. And she's having this like beautiful moment And it's like, oh no, every time this happens, there's a pattern here. Every time this happens, oh, it all goes terrible. So I mean, she earned everything she set up, and she paid off everything that she did. But at the same time, for me, like, it's a tiny bit of a con, because you lose. It's inevitable, but not necessarily unexpected.
Right.
And so I love the inevitability of the of how it ends, but not necessarily unexpected. But that's okay.
Yeah, and it is just kind of like life right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
totally.
Like there were like 300 people killed in mass shootings over 4th of July weekend. Like,
I mean, I forgot. I shouldn't say I forgot, but like you get some of these bodies piled up. You forget, like, oh yeah, Orlando. Good God, how could I forget Orlando?
That one's a really important one to me. So when I was in Marfa, the day that I gave my reading at the Marfa bookstore there was the day after that shooting.
Mm-hmm.
So like I have that one really locked in my mind.
And like, you were reading that homophobic essay that you had. It really was not the right time.
About monster porn. About people writing monster porn. So like, yeah, pretty not great. Like bad timing all around. But alas, like,
and the problem with homosexuals, you see, is that they can do it in the open now. Am I right? And like everybody's, this is Chad. No.
It was horrifying. I was like, I am so sorry that you're all here in some way.
Yeah, like you.
But yeah, that was one that like gets kind of lost a little bit.
How do the arts? I mean, this is a whole nother topic, but how do the arts respond to a world like this?
So I was thinking, yeah, absolutely. I was thinking,
are you inspired as an artist to create art after, you know, the next mass shooting, the next, you know, condo collapse, the next whatever, the next calamity? Or I guess it's one of those things, like, do you create out of moments of sorrow, or do you create out of like an exuberance of joy? Because either one can be a place to blossom and grow something, right? But I guess that's who you are as a person. But I find it hard after this stuff going on, like, to, oh, I want to create something beautiful myself.
Well, isn't your novel essentially predicated upon the proliferation of these events?
Like, yes, it is actually. Oh yeah, hey, there you go.
It's like there's an answer to your question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh God, there's so much.
But actually, it does, to not to like telegraph what I'm working on, but it does go with that idea of like so many things that we have, especially within capitalistic structures, are built on the foundations of blood and death and torture. And you're seeing that with the ending of this, where this horrible tragedy takes place at this beautiful event, and they're cashing in on it.
Yeah,
and that's horrible, but that's the way things work.
It's the way things work.
Disneyland is on top of a pile of bones, metaphorically, just terrible. Maybe literally too. There might be some people in the foundation of it. I don't know.
I wouldn't put it past.
But yeah, I mean, that's, or, you know, with mine being about Las Vegas, like, what do you think Las Vegas is built on?
Yeah,
it's sorrow, it's tragedy, and it's terror everywhere.
And soon to be the Oakland A's.
Yeah.
It's absolutely true. I was reading, I started listening to Underworld, the Don DeLillo book. So I haven't read it in decades, since it came out, actually. And Chloe read it this year and really loved it. And I was like, you know, I should really read that. I don't really remember it that well. But it reminded me that there's a point where I stopped reading all Don DeLillo books. And it was the one about 9/11. And there was that big thing at that point in time where, like, when 9/11 happened, like, don't write a book about 9/11. Like, it's too close. You can't do that. In the same way that people are, what's her name? Writes all those kind of like wink, wink, nod, nod, funny essays. Shit's her name. Super popular. She used to be a publicist. She had an essay at the beginning of the pandemic where it's like, all you writers are stuck at home. Don't write about the pandemic. It's horrible. It won't be good writing, blah, 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 blah. Like there are always like those reactions to these things. And in some ways, like, this book is like right on that level. Like for us, like the Bataclan and like the things that are like that are seemingly a long time ago, but they weren't when this was written in French.
What frightened me the most in this book is Europe's fear of immigration and the way she illustrated that in this, and that to me is, especially coming out of this first 4 years of Trump, it just feels so like spot on with the feeling that a lot of people here have that's growing. And I mean, there's always the violence piece. We're America. We have violence. We're good on that. But and we've always been pretty xenophobic. Yeah. But just like this nationalistic wave, like how much it's crashing on top of us right now, that really freaks me out and hits home perfectly. I think that's the really scary portent that's in this book, I think.
Yeah, and the way you said the first 4 years of Trump is terrifying because
well, you know, we'll see how that comment ages, but yeah, the fact that person's popular and has a following, or has people that still would follow it, like, good God. Yeah.
Yeah. That is terrifying. One of the things I thought was well done in a slightly more subtle way for the ending is we do get Patrice's sort of not he doesn't get redeemed, but he's sort of redeemed. Like his viewpoints are now like changed. He's altered.
Yeah.
It really did happen. And one thing that he keeps saying is like, I don't understand why with all these women have been raped. I don't understand why there aren't armies of women with hunting knives disemboweling guys just to restore calm. And like these mentions that he has of like, why isn't there a woman just like out there fucking murdering all these awful men? And then like the next chapter is this woman going and like blowing apart all the people, but it's the wrong people. But it's like, but they're not the wrong people because people like him would have fallen into that camp, and he's there. So it's wrong, and yet it's like a little bit of a moral tension there, where in his section you're like, yeah, why not? I mean, when Celeste, when all the women are like, oh yeah, Celeste is going to be going through some shit, like we understand. And he's like, does this happen to all of you? And they're like, yeah.
I know it was from the very end of last week's section, but I think like kind of, I don't want to sound academic, but a thesis statement for definitely this book, but the entire trilogy I think is on 299. I'll read the paragraph, not just the sentence for the setup. But it's when people are starting to come see Celeste to see how she's doing after being beat up and raped. Right in the middle, Daniel came. He is the first person to talk to her normally. There's no concerned hug or knowing look. He simply said, "Long time no see," with that smile she loves, that laid-back, laddish smile. Celeste found him more handsome than she remembered. From his nonchalance, she assumed that terrible things must have happened to him too. He had that delicate politeness of people who know that evil truly exists. And when it happens to you, it happens to you. No point gushing about it.
Yeah.
And it kind of goes along with that, the essay that helped Virginie get some, a little bit of healing or solace or closure from her rape, where it was the Camille Paglia of just like, look, if you're going to go outside, you can get raped. And that's just, it's out there. So,
yep.
I don't know what we're going to do about it, but all right. It's like this world is super screwed up and it's super messed up. And Daniel's, and that's the one person that she's like really into is, I found it was really interesting, that relationship that they have where, he's just like, hey, like, that's it. Hey, haven't seen you in a while. Anything new? What's going on?
The sort of cheesy yet maybe part of it. This is going to be kind of cheesy. I don't care. I'm just going to go with it anyways. But sort of artistic statement that goes behind this, along with that thesis, is that in the face of the fact that that's what's going to happen, we're not going to be able to stop the violence. We're not going to be able to stop the xenophobia. We're not going to be able to stop the people in power. They're not going to stop exploiting us. There's never going to be a way to win. You can think there is, but really, like, that's a pretty fucking long shot until like there's some global ass catastrophe. But nevertheless, like, the best you can do is make little pockets of music for like a night, when people like come together and have their dance and have their thing, and they carry that with them. It is like the religious thing again of like the Jesus and the disciples and spreading the word of that or whatever. But at the same time, with the with like books, with like any artistic enterprise, like it's kind of the best you can do. You can't really, you can like I believe a lot of Gen Z people think that you can write art that will socially change, they'll amount to social justice change. And I don't think that I think they're gonna be very burnt out on that within a few years, and they find out that it's not true, and that people have been doing similar things for eons, and the world doesn't care as much about art as it does commerce and slavery. So like and exploitation. So it's not going to work out. So like the best you can do is just make something that has some bit of hope or some bit of like momentary solace, and then it will get eaten up too. But at least it was there for a minute.
Yeah. Maybe get outside and take a walk or something. Don't get away from the TV for a little bit. Leave your phone in the car. Just take a walk for a little bit.
Don't watch The Walking Dead religiously.
Yeah, I did that today, and it helped a lot. Like I was feeling a little depressed after finishing this.
Yeah.
And I went for a hike with my wife and daughter, and I was like, oh, this is really nice. I need this. This is good.
Yeah, I walked to Walmart here in Rutland, Vermont, which is
yeah. Don't walk to Walmart. Don't do that.
Pens were in there, but like,
yeah, evil's out there. It exists, and it's gonna get you. And when it gets you, don't be bitching and moaning about it. Come on, go dance. There we go.
What I mean.
There's our. No, I'm kidding. There's our magnet. There's our meme magnet you can put on the entire book.
I mean, it was like that. Yeah. I mean, it shows up so many times, but alas. So as a whole, you feel she earned the 3-volume, 1,000 pages?
No.
Interesting.
I don't think it needed to be that long necessarily, but I enjoyed the ride, so I don't care. Like if it's a short ride or a long ride or like I don't care. Like it was all I know is a fun ride. And so
I mean, it doesn't have to be that long either.
Yeah. it could definitely be one book. I think probably breaking into 3 makes more sense, like a marketing type thing. Like you can have the volumes. I get that aspect of it. One giant tome would be kind of cool because it'd be like a Bible, right?
Yeah, like a infinite jest size.
Yeah, I think that would have been kind of sweet to just have a big fat freaking Bible of a book, and the mythology of it's all right there in one spot. But I don't care. It's good. It's not something I normally read. It's not something that I write, and so that's the kind of stuff I really like.
Yeah.
I can't say it changed. What's that?
Are you gonna watch the TV show?
I guess if I can find Canal Plus or whatever, but I don't watch a lot of French
topic
or whatever it is. I don't know.
What's your diagnosis? Topic's most famous show, but
what surprised you most with it then? With because it sounds like you liked it as well.
I like this form of storytelling. Like I'm reading this Shklovsky Theory of Prose new translation called On Theory of Prose. I think I mentioned this on an earlier podcast. I'm gonna fill in the blanks to this dumb story, but there were multiple files of the new translation of the Shklovsky book, and I got the wrong one laid out and proofed the wrong one, so I'm rereading it now with the right translation. Just super fucking annoying in so many ways, but it's all about like the structures of like how prose is written and how things function. And so reading that alongside something like this is really interesting. Reading alongside most anything is interesting, but like his examples are like, Don Quixote and Sherlock Holmes and Charles Dickens mysteries. And for something that's new and that has a different sort of sensibility than like a lot of those things, it's interesting because there are elements that do reflect on it, like the sort of step nature of fairy tale telling, where you move from one character to another that has to accomplish certain things to get the original thing taken care of. So like Alex Bleach's tapes go through like 5 different characters to get to Alex Bleach's tapes. Like that sort of way that these things fundamentally end up working is really fascinating to me. But I really just am a sucker for individual vignette style points of view. And
Yeah.
like going from this, I look, because I keep track of this stuff. I've read like vast majority of books by women this year, and that they've mostly fit more towards that side. And I've found that like sometimes going from something like this to a book that's written by a male, especially fiction, that has like a universal I that is the narrator and the teller, feels really oppressive. And that this book doesn't feel oppressive at all. So reading it was just purely joyful, and like and like it's disturbing, and there's shit in here that's like real on point with like people's characters and really like, you know, messed up and interesting ideas, but like it also feels more just joyful to be inside different people without someone pontificating and like lecturing all the time. You kind of be the one that shows you what the right thing is.
And I think that's why the third volume was my least favorite of the three, was because of having to tie all the ends for the plots. The narrative I felt was a little more kind of funneled into serving that. It was constrained into serving that. Whereas in the first books, it was just like kind of wild and free, and it felt aimless and amazing. And by the end of it, it's like we're racing to get to that finish line. And so things had to, it started kind of feeling like what was happening in those vignettes was serving the plot more so than just letting us explore.
That's like sort of the V Pynchon side of it to me though too, where it's like the freedom is going to be restrained. The form restrains itself. Like the nature of it being a novel restrains itself because it has to finish up these ways, or else it won't be deemed successful.
Well, you have like no audience. Like what kind
you have no audience.
How many people like to read a book where it's just like, I have no idea where it's going, and it's over. I don't know what happened.
That's what I'm trying to work on this weekend is 81 pieces that don't add up to anything. Fucking great.
How did it work for you as from like a publisher side of it, having the climax kind of take place like basically like it's not in scene necessarily?
Yeah, I like that.
You like that?
I do like that because I think it's closer to what happens. Most stuff happens off screen here. Like as we've talked about a lot of times, like the Celeste scene, even Celeste's like brutal scene is still a little bit off screen in the sense that we're seeing it through Max recounting it.
Yeah, it's mostly
tempering it, being like they went fucking crazy,
or seeing the aftermath, right?
Yeah, we see that we don't
like this, like semen being cleaned up. You don't see the act of the rape taking place. More of because I think in the same thing with the massacre. The massacre is not what's important. It's the aftermath of what it did to the people and to the movement. It was what I think what she was maybe going for in telling it that way, and I like that as well.
I like that quite a bit.
I know cinematically it's going to suck if you do it that way, but
I'd be curious.
But novelistically, it works great. But
it works really good in that way, especially because it does give you a chance to have. It's like that old school, not exactly, but sort of like the theory of writing soap operas, where like you never have a thing on screen happen. You instead have each character tell another character about it so that character can have their reaction to it, and those two can be fleshed out. It's much easier than having everyone in the room and someone kill someone. No way. Or rebuild a kill. It's much better to like do it one-on-one for forever.
Yeah, but no, this has been a fun, wild ride. I have not read a single word of Virginie Despentes before this, and so I'm glad to have read her essays and all three of these. I feel like I'm a better person for it, and I love recommending her to people as well.
Yeah, I do.
She's a cool voice. And it's a type of artist we need out there right now. Kind of like a don't give a fuck feel, which is nice right now, because I feel like so often we have to kind of step on eggshells as artists because we're worried about if we offend or if we. And it was nice to have something be a little bit more raw, like have some of those Kathy Acker type vibes. It's kind of cool. Like a love it or hate it artists are really cool ones for me. I like that.
Anyone being able to be willing to write despicable people in such a honest
and be compassionate towards monsters, right?
Yeah,
I like it.
It seems very rare. Instead, it usually feels like it's set up as like two rights that don't quite line up, and there's some middle thing, rather than like these people are clearly like we disagree with them. She disagrees with them.
Yeah.
So And that's interesting because it does really devolve it de-teeths the whole like autofiction set of readings for any book. Like there's no character in here who is Virginie Dupont.
Yeah.
I mean, the closest one would be the one who has to write the fucking TV show.
Oh no. I forget. Was Hyena at the Convergence?
Yeah,
she was.
I believe so.
Did she get got?
I think she got. Yeah, I think she's gone.
No, not the Hyena. The Hyena will live on.
So here's another idea that I had when I finished it last night too. Was that the Hyena's in an earlier book in Apocalypse Baby.
Mm-hmm.
And some of I don't know if the other characters aren't necessarily, but they're kind of typical things. And this is like kind of a summation, supposed to be like a summation of all of her kind of literary world up until this point. And in a way, that massacre might be it could be read as like an artistic statement of intent, that she's now murdered all of her typical people or typical characters she's relied on, the things that she's been doing, the tropes that she's been using. Like Pamela Kant's very much like a character that's in other books. There's certain things that are all there, and she just murdered them all. And so maybe this is like a new start.
Yeah, I've done all I want to do with this. I'm done.
Yeah, they all.
Yeah, I was just
blown off.
I could be completely wrong. I usually am, but I was kind of getting some of those like Kilgore Trout vibes from Hyena, wondering if she might be something that somehow pops up all over the place. In future works, just kind of like a fun, reoccurring character that's outside of time and space in some ways. That
would be fun.
But
she's like a fun detective in Apocalypse Baby, like the private investigator side of where she is. But
when I get to read something for pleasure, just for fun, I think I'm gonna have to hit up Apocalypse Baby. That's gonna be on my list.
It's fun. It's really fun. Pretty Things is really good too.
Speaking of not being able to read things for pleasure, where are we going next?
Well, I got to email some people, but next month I thought we'd have 2 special episodes in which we actually read journals. And we talked about reading an issue of A Public Space and an issue of Monkey Business, and just do that to see like what is in a full literary journal. Like I haven't read a literary journal as a product aside from like the Granta issues for the Spanish stuff, like maybe ever. And I can't tell you, like I look sometimes at journal things. I don't know what they're like. I don't know what it would be like to like actually look at that as a whole. So I think that would be fun. And then
I know what it's like to get rejected from a literary journal.
I'm
super good at that.
Like what makes up like an issue in that sense. And then we move on to 2666, which will be a big fall reading September onwards experience.
Awesome. And so correct me if I'm wrong, Monkey Business is it all Japanese?
All Japanese, but it's also published by Public Space. They're like sister publications.
Okay.
Like
because I think Public Space has at least one translated story to each issue, I believe. I haven't read it in a while, but
yeah, I don't know when their next issue comes out. I'm hoping that it is like just happens to be like right around now.
If she's still with the magazine, would you be able to get Bridget on? You think?
I think so.
I've only seen her on panels and got to talk to her at a couple AWPs, and she's amazing. She's a wonderful champion for like good literature. I'd be really excited to chat with her if we could.
Okay, so this is great. So the issue that's out right now, we'll just do this one. It's issue number 29. And the subject says, in these times of fragments and fragmented times, what are the shapes of our comfort, built and imagined? What gives boundaries and connection, healing and shelter, familiar pathways and points of rebellion? And there are pieces by Jhumpa Lahiri, Colm Toibin, Claire Massoud, other people I'm trying to see if I recognize, Stephen Milhauser.
Do they have any like good writers?
Yeah,
all these no-name short story writers and essays. Good Lord, we got a murderer's row there.
I know.
No wonder I always get rejected from that magazine. Holy cow!
And then there's like 4,000 people I don't know.
Okay.
Thais Kitiskaya, Johanka Delgado, JJ Amawuro Wilson, Kamiko Han, Graham Faust, These people I'm not familiar with. So
those are all made up names. Those aren't real people.
that's what. Yeah, I mean, I'm anyways and not pronouncing any of their names correctly. So there is that, and then there's also photography and art. So that's cool. Let's see what the monkey business one has. Monkey business.
You could make up every name on this too. I'm not going to know any of the. I will not know any of these writers either.
I don't think I will either, and that's what I think is exciting about it.
Yeah, I want something new. That'll be fun.
Yeah. So their most recent issue. Is that this one? No, that's what is that? Okay, it's this one. Oh, but it is mixed stuff. There's like Hideo Furukawa, yeah, Hiromi Ito, translated by Jeffrey Engels, if I know, and he's great. Haruki Murakami, In Conversation with Someone.
Okay.
Yoko Ogawa. So there are some that I know. There are a handful. So Saki Natsumi, but a good number of them that are just like not. Just people who probably have like not been translated to full, have had a full book translated. So yeah, so I think that we'll announce that and have that set up for August. And then we'll put together a whole list for the Mammoth 2666 event.
Fantastic. Looking forward to it.
Fun, because you've never read that.
I have not.
I read it I read it in a galley when FSG was doing that. That's at Book Expo. They gave out over, I think it was 4,000 copies of the galley of 2666, which is more copies than like most books we print. It's like promotion, and it's like 900 pages. Like it was not like a cheap thing to put together.
I'll re-say this when we do the episode, but I love that Rodrigo blurbs the 2666, the first one that came out.
Yeah.
That he blurbed that one, and that he also blurbed my first book to come out. So it's like, yeah, Rodrigo for the win. Are you still there? Well, that'll end the show. Bye-bye.